Tonight, former president and current presidential candidate Donald Trump answered questions about the verdict that found him liable for sexual abuse and the defamation of writer E. Jean Carroll. CNN's Caitlin Collins asked Trump whether he believes the verdict will deter women from voting for him. Trump said no, and then interrupted himself to share something truly stomach-turning.
What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay?
They found that you sexually abused her.
What? Say what they did. They said he didn't rape her. And I didn't do anything else either. You know what? Because I have no idea who the hell she is.
But, Mr. President,
I don't know who this woman
can I
is.
ask you, given your recounting
I
your version...
don't know who, and I tell you this.
But, Mr. President,
are you ready?
can I
swear
ask
on
you
my children, which I'd never do. I have no idea who this woman... This is a fake story. I have no idea who the hell... She's a whack job.
Mr. President, you did not...
In the hours since he was found liable for sexual abuse and defamation, Trump has not missed a chance to deny any of this. He's even used the same sort of language that prompted this defamation case. He still claims he doesn't know E. Jean Carroll. He is still claiming that she is a liar, and the case against him is a witch hunt. And he did that all tonight, too, as a presidential candidate. And he did it in front of a room of Republican voters who laughed. Joining us now is Democratic New York Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, it's a real honor and a pleasure to have you here tonight. I'm sorry that this is what we have to be talking about. Yesterday, when that verdict was read, I think a lot of people felt like there was real progress in American society for victims of sexual assault. Today, listening to the howls of laughter as the former president of the United States made fun of a woman that he was found criminally liable for sexually assaulting, to howls of laughter in the room. It felt like something far worse than backsliding or regression. I'm not sure what to call it. I wonder what you make of where we are as a culture.
Well, you know, I think even yesterday what we saw was the profound courage and sacrifice that a survivor like E. Jean Carroll makes, and survivors across the country make, many who often go unrecognized in the courageous act of coming forward to tell their story of an assault. And I think what we saw tonight is a continued demonstration of the sacrifice that women and survivors of sexual abuse across the country of all genders experience, and the sacrifices that they make in order to come forward and challenge power. And what we also saw tonight was the consequence of doing that. They sacrificed their anonymity, they sacrificed their safety, and they sacrifice all of this because we continue to live in a society where an overwhelming amount of structures allow this abuse to happen and find it permissible. You know, I know you said earlier that you will not comment on the platforming of such atrocious disinformation, but I would. I think it was a profoundly irresponsible decision. I don't think that I would be doing my job if I did not say that. And what we saw tonight was a series of extremely irresponsible decisions that put a sexual abuse victim at risk, that put that person at risk in front of a national audience, and I could not have disagreed with it more. It was shameful.
I think a lot of people are going to echo those points in the coming hours and days. The behavior of the president was, which, you know, our expectations for it, I think, collectively are fairly low, but he exceeded even those low expectations. I have to ask you how you felt about and how you feel about the revisionism around January 6th. We have heard for months now that January 6th rioters, insurrectionists, there to steal an election are heroes, people who've been treated badly, people who deserve better conditions because they're being treated like, quote unquote, hell. The president, former president, echoed that and suggested he might pardon many, if not all of them. You survived January 6th, and I believe you said it felt like you were going to die. I think it's really important in this moment to champion the voices of victims. And as someone who was a victim that day, how does this all feel to you? How does this narrative feel to you?
You know, I made a statement about 2 weeks ago. And in that statement, I stated that January 6th was just a dress rehearsal for some of these folks. And I believe that the former president really echoed that sentiment tonight. Why else would you pardon people who perpetuated a terrorist attack on the United States Capitol, other than for reasons to support the person in a potential effort to do it again? We also saw that he refused tonight to say and commit that he would not only recognize the results of the 2020 election, but also refused outright to acknowledge any outcome and respect any outcome of a 2024 election. This is a profoundly dangerous moment. What we saw on January 6th was a dress rehearsal, because what we are seeing is that being set as an example in state legislatures across the country, in the ability to really suspend democracy in states like Tennessee and Montana, where they are following the president's example and they are committing truly unprecedented acts in attempts to either expel, censor, or generally bar members, duly elected legislative officials from entering their legislative bodies in which they have been elected to. This is a profoundly dangerous moment. To see someone deny it, for him to also be platformed in the lie that he somehow attempted to call the National Guard. I will tell you, we were barricaded in a room with the lights off, and that entire day, hearing the screams from outside our window, trying to figure out if we were going to break the glass to jump out, and if so, how would we not be recognized or killed on the street. And we knew when the sun was setting that night and the National Guard had there was no indication that help was coming. It was terrifying. But that won't even hold a candle to what Donald Trump is capable of. He was stopped on January 6th. Let's remember that. He was stopped from what he ultimately wanted to do. And he repeated that tonight. He said what should have happened was that Mike Pence should have overturned the election. That is what he said tonight. For as bad as January 6th is, I believe that the former President Trump, would not have qualms about going further, without a shadow of a doubt.
You know, I think it's hard for us to grapple with the future that Trump has sort of outlined for the Republican Party, if not the country, what he would like to see in a 2024 election. But it's very certain that Trump has created a model for a new politician. And I have to ask you about George Santos, because George Santos has not called for an insurrection. But I think Trump established this precedent that you can just lie with impunity and you're never going to have to pay a price. Now, he may end up paying a price. It certainly seems like he will pay a price. But George Santos seems to have learned a lesson at the knee of Donald Trump, which is that the truth doesn't matter. What is his future in Congress? What do you think can and should happen? He's part of the New York delegation. Can you give us any insight into how it is that this person is still acting, emphasis on the word acting, as an elected representative?
I mean, your point about Donald Trump setting a model is a very astute one. Even what we saw today and yesterday, after yesterday's announcements of these charges and these counts this morning, the counts in the indictment being unsealed, 13 counts of criminal activity, varying the spectrum of different kinds of offenses. George Santos publicly declared it a witch hunt. He went on Twitter and decided to take wholesale a page out of Donald Trump's book and decide to attack the courts, decide to attack a potential investigation, claim that his breaking of the law and the acknowledgement of that, and that these indictments of that could be a political persecution, an act of political persecution. I mean, all of this is truly cut from the cloth of former President Trump, and it is not. It's not a coincidence whatsoever. We are seeing this, that any semblance of accountability is deemed a witch hunt. And that attack of the truth, that attack on our institutions, those attacks on our courts, the attacks on any semblance of of the structures and the rules and the guides that we all, each one of us as society, would live up to. That in and of itself is the game. To attack any narrative or any fact that inconveniences you as biased, and the facts that favor you as being the capital T truth, is the very definition and cuts at the very core of Trumpism. And it is what leads to cults of personality. It is how you condition your followers to not question any set of facts that may cast you in a negative light. I mean, it is a very serious moment that we all should take very, very seriously. But as in terms of his future, he should resign. But I don't think he will. Just like President Trump, I don't think that there's any amount of pressure that would lead an individual like that to withdraw, unless, of course, they became unless they were in custody, frankly.
That's the new bar. A democracy if you can keep it. Some days, some moments, these years, it's not sure whether we can actually keep it. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, really a pleasure to have you on the show tonight. Thanks for your thoughts.
Of course, thank you.